Hello and welcome. I'm Aiden, your narrator for tonight. Let's take this time together to step away from the rush of the day and ease into a world of dreams and wonder. Tonight, I'll tell you a story, The Whispering Pine, a tale of a child and a majestic pine tree who share a special bond, where the secrets of the wind, the mountains, and the stars are whispered in the quiet stillness of nature. As we journey through this story, we'll learn how listening closely to the world around us can bring peace, wisdom, and comfort. But before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from, and what time is it as you settle in to hear this story? We'd also love to know what kinds of stories you'd enjoy next. Your thoughts and suggestions inspire us, so please share them in the comments below. If you'd like even more from us, you can check out our Patreon, where you'll gain early access to all our stories, as well as a curated Spotify playlist to help you rest. And if these bedtime stories have been a gentle pause in your nights, subscribing is the simplest way to support us. It means the world to us, and it helps us keep this space soft and sacred for dreamers like you. Now take a deep breath, gently close your eyes if you'd like, and let the world around you fade away. Feel your body begin to relax, letting go of any tension or worries from the day. Imagine yourself in a peaceful valley, surrounded by the soft sounds of nature. With each breath, let yourself drift deeper into calmness, preparing your mind and heart for the story we are about to share. As the cool breeze whispers through the trees, settle in and feel at ease. The story of the Whispering Pine is about to begin. In a small, peaceful valley, nestled between the rolling hills, lived a curious child named Jenna. Jenna had always felt drawn to the quiet spaces in nature, the places where the earth seemed to hum with life in ways that words could not describe. One day, while wandering deeper into the forest than she ever had before, she found herself in a small clearing. There, standing tall and strong, was a magnificent pine tree. Its trunk was thick and sturdy, and its branches reached high into the sky, stretching toward the clouds. It was unlike any tree Jenna had ever seen before. The pine seemed to whisper, not with words, but with the rustling of its needles in the breeze, as if it was speaking directly to her. She approached cautiously, as if not wanting to disturb the peaceful presence of this ancient tree. The wind picked up just enough to make the pine sway gently, and in the soft rustling of its branches, Jenna heard something, faint but clear, a whisper. "Come closer, child." The voice was calm, like the softest breeze, yet it carried with it a sense of knowing, as if the tree had been waiting for her arrival. Jenna hesitated for a moment, unsure if the wind had played tricks on her ears, but something about the voice felt real. Her heart filled with curiosity, and she took another step forward. Slowly, she reached out to touch the rough bark of the tree, feeling its strength beneath her fingertips. A sense of peace washed over her, as though the tree's presence alone could calm her restless thoughts. "What are you?" Jenna asked softly, her voice barely a whisper herself. The tree did not answer directly, but the rustling of its needles grew louder, as if the tree was settling in, preparing to share its secrets. "I am the Whispering Pine," the tree said at last, its voice no longer faint but clear, like a soft song on the wind. "I have stood here for many lifetimes, and I know the songs of the wind. the stories of the mountains, and the dreams of the stars. Jenna's eyes widened in awe. She had never met a tree that could speak before. She sat beneath its branches, feeling an unspoken invitation to stay, to listen, to learn. "Will you tell me your stories?" Jenna asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Yes," the pine replied. "But you must first listen with more than your ears. You must listen with your heart, for the world speaks in ways that are not always heard with the mind. Will you learn to listen, Jenna?" Jenna nodded, a sense of excitement bubbling within her. The pine had promised to teach her something precious, something that only those who truly listened could understand. As the days passed, Jenna returned to the clearing where the whispering pine stood, patiently waiting for her. Each time she approached, the tree seemed to greet her with a soft rustling of its branches, as if it recognized her presence. The more she visited, the more she learned. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip behind the distant mountains, Jenna sat beneath the pine once again, ready for her lesson. "What will we learn today?" she asked, her voice filled with anticipation. The pine's voice came to her, soft yet clear. "Today, we will listen to the wind," it said. "The wind is a messenger, carrying stories from faraway lands, from the mountaintops to the valleys, from the forests to the seas. But it is a quiet messenger. To hear its message, you must quiet your mind and let your heart open to the whispers it carries." Jenna closed her eyes and took a deep breath, allowing the sounds of the world to fade away. The wind began to stir, its soft touch on her face like a caress. She listened closely, tuning into the quiet hum that surrounded her. At first, all she could hear was the rustling of the pine's needles and the distant calls of birds. But then, just as the pine had said, she began to notice something else. The wind carried a delicate melody, a faint song that seemed to rise and fall with the movement of the air. It was a tune she couldn't quite place, yet it felt strangely familiar, like a memory she had long forgotten. "Can you hear it?" the pine asked, its voice filled with warmth. "The wind sings a song of time, of all that has come before and all that is yet to be. It carries the stories of the earth, of the mountains, of the trees that have lived and died. But to hear it, you must listen with your soul, not just your ears." Jenna sat quietly, letting the wind's song wash over her. Slowly, the pieces of the melody began to come together, and she felt a deep connection to the world around her. She could almost hear the whispers of ancient trees, the distant laughter of children playing in other lands, the soft murmur of rivers winding through forgotten valleys. The wind was alive with stories. If only she would listen. "I hear it," she whispered, her voice barely audible, filled with awe. "I hear the song." The pine nodded, its branches swaying gently in approval. "And you will hear more, child. If you listen carefully, the world will always have something to share with you." Jenna smiled, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. In that moment, she understood what the pine had meant. The world was full of stories, of quiet wisdom, if only she took the time to listen. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, feeling the gentle breeze on her skin, ready to hear more. The lessons had only just begun. The days grew longer, and with each passing day, Jenna's connection to the whispering pine deepened. The pine's voice became a constant companion, softly guiding her through the rhythms of nature. One evening, as the golden light of dusk bathed the valley in a warm glow, the pine spoke again. "Today, we will listen to the mountains," it said, its voice full of quiet reverence. "The mountains are ancient. They have stood for eons, watching over the valley, the forest, and the sky. They hold the stories of the world, carved into their rocky faces and hidden deep within their quiet crevices. To hear their secrets, you must learn to be still, like the mountains themselves." Jenna sat under the branches of the whispering pine, looking toward the distant peaks that loomed in the horizon. She had always admired the mountains from afar, their towering presence seeming both unapproachable and wise. But today, she was about to learn something new. The wind began to stir once more, this time carrying with it a different kind of song, deeper, more resonant, as if the very earth was humming with ancient knowledge. "Close your eyes, Jenna," the pine instructed, "and feel the mountains with your heart. Let their stillness settle into your bones, their strength fill your spirit." Jenna followed the pine's advice, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. She could feel the weight of the mountains, not in the heaviness of their stone, but in the deep calm that radiated from them. The mountains had witnessed so much, and in that stillness, they carried the wisdom of the ages. The wind whispered softly through the trees, and Jenna felt the stories of the mountains begin to unfurl in her mind. She imagined the way the peaks had been shaped over time, the slow erosion of rock, the passage of seasons and storms. She could almost hear the echo of ancient creatures that had once roamed the land, the songs of the earth itself. "The mountains speak in silence," the pine said, its voice soft but steady. "They tell their stories not through words, but through the quiet presence they have in the world. To listen to them is to understand that true strength comes from stillness, from enduring quietly, from being patient with time." Jenna smiled, a deep understanding settling in her heart. She had learned to listen to the wind, to the whispers of the trees, and now she was learning to hear the mountains, not through sound, but through their enduring presence. The mountains, like the whispering pine, had their own way of speaking, and Jenna knew that if she listened carefully, she would continue to hear their stories for the rest of her life. As the seasons shifted, Jenna's visits to the Whispering Pine became a cherished part of her daily routine. With each visit, the lessons grew deeper, the connections stronger. One crisp autumn evening, as the first stars began to twinkle in the sky, the pine spoke again. "Tonight, we will listen to the stars," it said, its voice calm yet filled with wonder. "The stars are the dreams of the night, scattered across the heavens. They hold the stories of the past, the hopes of the present, and the mysteries of the future. But to hear them, you must learn to look beyond what you see and listen to the quiet songs that lie hidden in the sky." Jenna sat beneath the pine, her eyes following the twinkling lights above. The night sky was clear, and the stars seemed to stretch on forever, like a vast ocean of light. She had always admired the stars from a distance, but tonight she would try to listen to them in a new way. "Close your eyes again, Jenna," the pine instructed, "and let the quiet of the night fill your mind. Reach out with your heart and listen to the stories the stars have to share." Jenna closed her eyes, feeling the cool night air against her skin. She allowed the stillness of the night to settle around her, letting go of all the thoughts and worries that had filled her mind during the day. Slowly, she began to sense something beyond the silence of the dark sky. The stars seemed to be pulsing with a soft light, each one vibrating with its own quiet energy. It was as if each star had its own story, its own dream to tell. The wind picked up, carrying with it a soft, melodic hum, like a lullaby woven from the light of the stars themselves. Jenna could almost hear the stars whispering to each other, passing on their stories from one to another, a chain of dreams stretching across the vastness of the night. The stars are the dreams of the universe, the pine said gently, as though reading Jenna's thoughts. They are the hopes of every living thing, the wishes of every heart. And while you may never fully understand their secrets, you can feel their presence. The stars are the guiding lights of the night, offering comfort and direction when the world feels dark. Jenna opened her eyes and gazed up at the sky, her heart swelling with a quiet awe. The stars seemed to shine even brighter now, each one a beacon of hope, a tiny spark of light in the vastness of the universe. In that moment, she realized that the stars, like the wind and the mountains, had their own way of speaking. They were not just lights in the sky, they were the dreams of the world, the promises of tomorrow, and the quiet whispers of the universe. Jenna smiled softly to herself. The world, in all its vastness, was full of stories, if only one knew how to listen. And as she lay beneath the whispering pine that night, with the stars watching over her, Jenna felt at peace. The universe had spoken to her in its own way, and she had learned to listen. As the days grew colder and the trees shed their vibrant leaves, Jenna continued her lessons with the whispering pine. She had learned to listen to the wind, the mountains, and the stars. But now, the pine had something new to share with her. One early morning, when the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, the pine spoke in a voice that was both calm and full of excitement. Today, we will listen to the heartbeat of the forest, it said, the words filled with the promise of a new discovery. The forest is alive in ways you may not yet understand. Beneath the leaves, beneath the roots, there is a rhythm, a pulse that connects all living things. To hear it, you must be still and quiet, and you must feel the life that flows through the trees, the earth, and the creatures that call this place home. Jenna sat down on the soft moss beneath the pine, her legs folded beneath her. She closed her eyes, taking in a deep breath of the crisp, earthy air. The forest was quiet in the early morning, the only sounds being the distant calls of birds waking up and the soft rustling of leaves. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, fresh and grounding. As she focused, she began to feel a subtle change in the air around her, a slight shift in the rhythm of the forest. It was as if the entire world was breathing in unison, the trees swaying gently in time with an invisible pulse. The sound of the wind seemed to blend with the rustling of leaves, and Jenna could hear the faintest tapping of tiny creatures moving through the underbrush, each one contributing to the quiet symphony of the forest. "Can you feel it, Jenna?" the pine asked, its voice like the hum of a distant melody. The forest has its own heartbeat, a rhythm that connects every leaf, every branch, every creature. The trees speak to one another through their roots, the animals share their lives through their movements, and the wind carries the stories of all that lives here. The forest is a living, breathing thing, and you are a part of it. Jenna sat in stillness, her heart slowing as she tuned into the subtle rhythms around her. She could feel the pulse of life, not in her own chest, but in the very air she breathed. The heartbeat of the forest was gentle but strong, a reminder that everything in nature was connected, each part contributing to the greater whole. As the morning light grew brighter, Jenna opened her eyes, her heart full of gratitude for the lesson she had learned. The forest was more than just a collection of trees and animals. It was a living entity, with its own soul, its own rhythm, and its own stories to share. And as she sat there, surrounded by the forest's quiet pulse, she knew that she was part of something much larger than herself. The days grew shorter, and the air grew colder as the world slowly slipped into winter. Jenna continued her visits to the Whispering Pine, but now there was a sense of quiet finality in the air. It was as if the lessons she had learned were leading her to a deeper understanding, one that would prepare her for the next chapter of her life. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars began to appear, the pine spoke again, its voice softer now, almost like a lullaby. "Tonight, Jenna, I will give you a gift," it said, its branches swaying gently in the evening breeze. "This gift is the final lesson, the one that will help you carry the wisdom you have learned into the world. You have listened to the wind, the mountains, the stars, and the forest. You have learned to hear the quiet stories that surround you. Now it is time to listen to your own heart." Jenna, filled with anticipation, sat down beneath the pine, her back against its sturdy trunk. The pine's voice was gentle, but it carried a deep sense of love and care. "You are part of this world, Jenna," the pine continued. "You are as much a part of the wind, the mountains, the stars, and the forest as I am. And just as I have shared my stories with you, you too have stories to share. Your heart holds the wisdom of all you have learned, and when you listen to it, you will find peace, strength, and guidance." Jenna closed her eyes, taking in the pine's words. She had always been a listener, soaking in the stories of the world around her. But now, she was being asked to listen to something deeper, something within herself. She placed her hand over her heart and took a slow, deep breath, letting the stillness of the moment fill her. As she sat in the quiet, she began to hear a faint sound, a rhythm that was her own. It was a heartbeat, steady and calm, like the pulse of the forest, like the whisper of the wind. It was her own voice, her own truth, and it filled her with a sense of peace and understanding. "You have listened carefully, Jenna," the pine said, its voice full of love. "Now, carry this wisdom with you, wherever you go. The world will always have stories to share, but you must also listen to the story that lies within you. It is just as important as the stories of the wind, the mountains, and the stars." Jenna smiled softly, her heart full of gratitude for the pine's gift. She knew that she would carry its wisdom with her always, that she would continue to listen to the world around her and to the quiet voice within. As the stars began to shine brightly overhead, Jenna stood up and looked one last time at the Whispering Pine, her heart full of peace. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but filled with meaning. "Thank you for everything." The pine's branches swayed gently, as if in response, and Jenna knew that its stories would stay with her forever. She turned and began to walk back toward the valley, her heart light and full of love for the world she had learned to listen to so deeply. And as she walked, the whisper of the pine followed her, like a soft song on the wind, reminding her that the world was full of stories, stories waiting to be heard by those who were willing to listen. As the seasons continued their quiet dance, Jenna noticed the changes in the world around her. The forest had begun to transition from the deep silence of winter to the early stirrings of spring. The once frosted earth had begun to soften, and the first shoots of green were pushing their way through the soil, reaching toward the sun. Flowers began to bloom in patches of vibrant color, filling the air with their delicate fragrance. It was a time of renewal and quiet growth, and Jenna found herself drawn to the whispering pine more than ever. One afternoon, as the warm sun bathed the valley in light, the pine spoke to her once more. "Jenna, today we will listen to the rebirth of the earth," the pine's voice said, full of wonder and hope. "As the seasons turn, the earth begins to awaken, and with it, a new energy stirs. It is a time of growth, a time for new beginnings. To hear the changes, you must learn to listen to the subtle shifts, the quiet growth that happens beneath the surface." Jenna sat beneath the pine, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin and the soft breeze that carried with it the scent of new life. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to become still, to listen. The forest around her seemed to be awakening in every sense. She could hear the faint rustle of new leaves beginning to unfurl, the chirping of birds returning from their long migration, the soft hum of bees and insects moving between flowers. The air itself felt alive, buzzing with energy, and Jenna could feel it all, as if her very soul was attuned to the rhythm of the earth. "The earth speaks in many ways," the pine's voice drifted through her thoughts. "It speaks through the rustling of the leaves, the growth of the plants, the songs of the birds. But it also speaks through the silence, through the quiet moments of rest before the new life blooms. In every season, there is a rhythm, a time for stillness and a time for growth. The earth does not rush, it knows that everything happens in its own time." As Jenna sat, she felt a deep sense of peace settle in her chest. She had always known that nature followed a rhythm, but now she felt it in her bones. She could hear the earth's heartbeat, the subtle pulse of life that was ever present, waiting to bloom. The earth's wisdom was in its patience, its understanding that growth took time, that life needed rest before it could renew itself. She opened her eyes and looked around. The world was beginning to stir, and she knew that, just like the earth, she too was undergoing a transformation. The lessons of the pine were taking root in her heart, and she felt herself becoming more attuned to the world, more aware of its quiet rhythms. "In every season, there is wisdom," the pine said, as if reading her thoughts. "And in every season, there is a lesson to be learned. The earth teaches us that growth is not always immediate. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes we must be patient and trust that the changes we seek are already in motion, even if we cannot see them yet." Jenna smiled softly to herself. She knew that the changes she sought in her own life were happening, slowly and quietly, just like the earth. And as she sat beneath the whispering pine, feeling the gentle pulse of the earth beneath her, she felt a renewed sense of hope and patience. As spring unfolded its vibrant colors across the valley, Jenna's visits to the Whispering Pine became even more meaningful. Each day seemed to bring something new, a new sound, a new feeling, a new lesson. And as the days grew warmer, she could sense that something was changing in the air, something that she could not yet fully understand. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned to shades of purple and gold, the pines spoke again. "Tonight, Jenna, we will listen to the return of the wind," it said, its voice soft but filled with anticipation. "The wind has been absent for some time, resting through the stillness of winter. But now it is returning, bringing with it new messages, new stories, and new energy. To hear it, you must open yourself to the changes that are coming." Jenna sat beneath the pine, her eyes turned toward the horizon, where the first signs of the evening breeze were beginning to stir the trees. The air felt lighter now, filled with the soft promise of the coming wind. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, allowing herself to relax into the moment, to be present with the world around her. Slowly, she began to feel the wind. It was subtle at first, just a whisper on the air, but soon it grew stronger, brushing against her skin and tousling her hair. The wind seemed to speak in a language she did not fully understand, but it felt like a conversation, like an old friend returning after a long absence. She could feel the energy of the wind, the excitement in its movement, the stories it carried from far-off places. "The wind travels the world," the pine said softly. "It carries the voices of faraway lands, the songs of distant mountains, the stories of oceans and deserts. The wind does not stay in one place for long, but its message is always clear. It brings change, it carries life, and it reminds us that we are all connected, no matter where we are in the world." Jenna listened closely, feeling the wind's stories as it wrapped around her, filling her with a sense of adventure and possibility. She could hear the rustle of leaves in the trees, the soft movement of the grass, and the distant call of the birds. The wind was bringing with it the promise of something new, something yet to unfold. "The wind teaches us that nothing stays the same forever," the pine's voice continued. "Change is constant, but it is not something to fear. It is part of the natural rhythm of the world. Just as the wind changes direction, just as the seasons turn, so too will your life. And when change comes, you must be ready to listen, to embrace it with an open heart." Jenna took a deep breath, feeling the wind fill her lungs and heart. She knew that change was inevitable, but now she understood that it was also something to be welcomed. The wind was not a force to be feared, but a messenger of new beginnings, of growth and transformation. As the wind swirled around her, Jenna felt a deep sense of peace. She was ready for whatever came next, ready to listen to the messages the wind would bring. And with that, she closed her eyes, allowing the wind to carry her spirit into the future, where new stories and new adventures awaited her. As the days grew longer and the world around her continued to bloom, Jenna found herself reflecting more and more on the lessons she had learned beneath the Whispering Pine. The rhythm of the forest, the heartbeat of the earth, and the whispers of the wind had become a part of her, like a gentle song that played softly in the background of her life. But now, as the air grew warmer and the flowers fully bloomed, the pine's voice was quieter, almost as if it were preparing for something. One evening, as the golden light of sunset bathed the valley, The pine spoke again. "Jenna," it said, its voice soft and filled with a depth that resonated with her heart. "You have listened to the world, to the whispers of the wind, the pulse of the earth, the rhythm of the seasons. But now it is time to listen to something even deeper. It is time to listen to your own soul." Jenna sat down beneath the pine, her heart filled with a sense of anticipation. She had learned so much from the world around her, from the forest and the winds. But now she was being asked to listen to something that had always been with her, but that she had never fully understood. "To hear your soul," the pine continued, "you must be still, and you must look within. Your soul is not a voice you can always hear clearly, but it is always there, guiding you, whispering to you in the quietest moments. It speaks through your feelings, your desires, and your dreams. It speaks through your heart, the part of you that knows what is true, even when your mind is unsure." Jenna closed her eyes, her breathing slowing as she focused on the gentle rhythm of her heartbeat. She had learned to listen to the world around her, but now she needed to listen to the voice within. She allowed her thoughts to settle, her mind quieting as she turned her attention inward. At first, there was only stillness, a calm and quiet space that seemed to stretch out before her. But as she breathed deeply, she began to feel something stirring within her, a subtle warmth that filled her chest. It was as if her soul was reaching out to her, speaking softly but with great clarity. "Your soul is the keeper of your truth," the pine's voice seemed to say, resonating with Jenna's own inner knowing. "It knows the path you must take, the choices you must make, the love you must give. It is not always easy to hear, for it speaks in whispers, but when you listen closely, you will hear its wisdom, its guidance." Jenna felt a deep sense of peace as she sat in the stillness, listening to the quiet wisdom that was rising within her. For the first time, she realized that the lessons she had learned from the forest, the wind, and the earth were not just about the world around her. They were preparing her for the journey within, for the quiet whispers of her own heart. She smiled softly, feeling a sense of connection to the world and to herself, knowing that she was never alone, that her soul was always with her, guiding her through every step of life. As the seasons continued to shift, Jenna knew that her time with the whispering pine was drawing to a close. The lessons she had learned had become a part of her, woven into the fabric of her being. The rhythms of the world, the heartbeat of the earth, the whispers of the wind, and the quiet guidance of her own soul had all taught her the same thing: that everything in the universe was connected, that all things were part of a greater whole. One evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, the pine spoke one final time. "Jenna," it said, its voice full of warmth and love. "It is time for you to carry the wisdom you have gained into the world. The forest, the wind, the earth, and the stars, they will always be here. But now, it is time for you to take your place among them. You have learned to listen to the world, to the rhythm of nature, and to your own heart. Now, you must trust yourself to carry that wisdom with you, wherever you go." Jenna sat beneath the pine, her heart full of gratitude for all that she had learned. The stars above her seemed to glow brighter, as if they too were offering their silent blessing. She could feel the whispers of the pine still with her, wrapping her in their warmth, their love, and their guidance. "The stars," the pine's voice continued, "have always watched over you. They are the silent keepers of your dreams, your hopes, and your potential. They too speak in whispers, telling stories that are written in the sky. And now, you must listen to the song of the stars, the melody of the universe that is always there, waiting for those who are ready to hear it. Jenna looked up at the stars, her heart soaring as she felt the weight of their timeless wisdom. She could hear their song, a quiet hum that resonated with the rhythm of the world around her. It was a song of hope, of peace, of endless possibilities. "You are part of this song, Jenna," the pine said, its voice full of love. "You have always been part of it. Your heart is in tune with the universe, and as you move forward, you will carry this song with you. No matter where you go, the song of the stars will always be with you, a reminder of your place in the world, your connection to all things." Jenna smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. She had learned to listen, to hear the stories that the world had to share. And now she knew that she was ready to share her own story. The stars, the wind, the earth, and the pine. They had all played their part in helping her understand the rhythm of the world. And now she was ready to move forward, to live her life with the wisdom and peace she had gained. As the night grew deeper and the stars shone brighter, Jenna stood up and took a final look at the whispering pine. She could feel the love and wisdom of the pine in her heart, and she knew that its whispers would continue to guide her wherever she went. She turned and walked away, her heart light and full of love for the world, knowing that the song of the stars would always be with her, wherever her journey took her.